Electronisounds Audio, the YouTube channel for you.
What's happening, guys? It's Dean from Electronisounds. I'm running a Dub Techno track inside of the AKAI Force, and I'm taking you with me every step of the way. This is episode 4. Stick around. Hey guys, thanks for joining me for episode 4. We've got the Force fired up here, and we've got a completely empty session aside from all of the recordings that we've done on episodes 1, 2, and 3 of this series. So today we're going to start the editing process inside of the Force. This is probably going to be a long video as there's quite a bit of recordings to edit. So stick with me, or if you're not into watching the editing process, soon there will be an episode 5 and you can skip forward and get right into that. Let's go ahead and press menu, and we're going to press sample edit, and here we'll see all of the samples that are in our sample pool. I'm going to be using that term a lot during this editing process, probably, the sample pool, and that refers to just literally all of the samples that are inside of the AKAI Force in this project. That's going to be our sample pool. So what we're going to do, guys, is I'm going to use a combination of the screen and the knobs to edit these samples, and right now the screen, the little LEDs here for the knobs are all blank, and we're going to hold the knobs button down rather. We're going to click screen so that the knobs reflect what we're seeing on the screen, and now I get some sort of, controls for helping to edit the samples without having to do everything manually with my fingers. But we're going to be doing a lot of things manually with my fingers as well. And so this is the Ableton Stab that I recorded out of Ableton through the amplifier. So it's a mono stab. We're going to just pretty much start going through the entire amount of samples in the sample pool today. And so right now what I'm doing is just zooming in on the start point of this first sample. We'll click the headphones icon so that when I press the screen, it's going to preview the actual sample. And I'll check on the screen here that the level's okay on the iPhone that we're recording on. Cool. And what we'll go ahead and do, oops, sorry. I'm on that lavalier microphone again today, and it's kind of slapping around on the headphone cable it's attached to a little bit. Sorry about that. So now that I've got that start point set where I want to, I can hit the process button and select discard. And anything that's outside of my start and stop point will get discarded. And now we've got a really clean start point on that sample. We've got a really nice hot level on that, so I'm not going to adjust the volume there. I am going to let it play out all the way. And we're going to listen really close, and I'll find out where I can bring this in point to. See, now you can hear me talking in the original recording at that point. I'm going to go ahead and bring the end point to there. We're going to hit process and discard to get rid of everything beyond that. And then I'm going to highlight just the end of this recording, hit process again, and we're going to scroll until we get to fade out. Get a little bit of a fade out on the end. Go back to the beginning here. And this sample is good to go, so we'll go ahead and go on to our next one. And it's a second stab sample from... Just probably made sure that I wanted to get that twice. So I'm just going to go ahead and... Let's see here. I don't actually need both of these in the... because they're really the same. So what let's do is get rid of the Ableton Stab-Amp2 from our session. And how we can do that, let's see here, is if we go... All I have to do to delete the sample from the AKAI Force when we're in the editing process is hit this little trash can button up here, which is for delete sample. Sorry about that. Are you sure you want to delete the stab? Yes, we do. Okay, so here's our Ableton Stab that we've edited, and now we're moving on to the next sample. Now this is a bass that we've recorded through the amp. Double check that we're not too loud. Now we're okay. And what let's do, let me zoom in here so we can really individualize what we're looking at here. Put that back to headphones. Alright, let me zoom way in on the very downbeat of that there, all the way, and I could be, again, I use sort of a combination of the screen and the knobs. Get right in there. We're going to go process and discard, so everything outside of our start and stop points will get deleted, and now we'll be right up on that downbeat there. You follow? And so I can zoom out here. And I think I'm just going to get 2 loops of that. And the reason for that is that we want to sort of, on some level, save on the amount of sampling time that we're putting into the Force, so that we still have extra time inside of that memory to be able to, you know, add lots and lots of extra stuff if we need to later. I'm going to get right up on the beginning of where that next one starts, and we're going to go process, discard again, and now I should have a really clean 2-bar loop. Maybe a 1-bar loop. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. Okay, cool deal. Let's move on to the next sample and see what we can do. Here I would also start adjusting levels. If things were too low, we might normalize some of the samples along the way as well. Let's take a listen to this. This is a bass recording that we did through the Electron Analog Heat 2, so it's got some saturation on it. It also has some delay coming through from the Grooverider amp. Let's start by getting in quite a bit closer on this so we can see a little bit better. We'll just process discard. Now we've got a lot better idea of what's happening here. I'll start the zoom in process on this downbeat here. And basically what I'm looking for is I'm looking for when the actual line of audio starts lifting up off of that, you know, middle line, which we're considering the 0 crossing. As soon as it starts coming up off of that line, right about, I hope you can see that. So right about there we'll choose, and we're going to go process and discard, and I'll zoom out again. So now if I hit the preview, it should be like dead on, you know. That's actually really awesome. If you listen really carefully, you'll hear that it takes about half of a measure for the delay to kick in. So when we start looping this, there's going to be a variation at the beginning of the loop as the delay is catching up, and you'll kind of hear that, and it sort of gives it like, in my opinion, kind of like an old school, like a 90s trip hop kind of feel, like where you know you're working with samples as you're listening to it, you know? So we're going to bring the level on this up just a tad. We're going to go scroll over here to gain shift. We're going to bring this up like 3 decibels just to get a little bit hotter level there. Cool. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 2, 3, 4. 3, 2, 3, 4. 4. Dum, 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 bop. Okay, so we've got just a little bit more than a 4-bar loop here. I'm going to leave the end unedited. I'm going to trim just a little bit more off with the discard feature, and you'll see why later as we start producing this, why that end is unedited. Because I'm going to tell this sample to only hold down as I'm pressing the key, and so when we just when we let go of the key at the end of 4 bars and re-trigger the sample, it will just automatically lift up off the end there, and we won't need to edit that manually. You'll see what I mean later if that doesn't make sense now. Here's another version of the bass sample. Let me go switch to a different clip and we'll start editing this one. Right off the jump, I'd like to get a little bit more volume on this one, so we're going to go to the gain change function here. I'm going to bring this up 5 decibels. I'm kind of doing this arbitrarily. Once you've done this for quite some time, you'll start to just sort of know like what you're after, and we'll trim this in half by default also, so we can get a better view of what we're actually dealing with. So we'll just zoom in and discard there, and then let's see here. Okay, what let's do here is let's right off the jump make a duplicate copy of this so that I can split it up and do a couple of different things. So we're going to use the process feature, and I'm going to scroll over until it says like copy, There we go, copy, and it's gonna just by default put a 1 after the end of it, and we'll just say do it. And now in the menu here, you can see that like there's the first one, and then there's the second one. So on this first one, we can edit it without fear that we're losing the actual sample, you know. I'm gonna just discard there so we can see a little bit better. And what I want to do is I want to just trim these individual note hits out maybe so that we could sequence them on our own and not worry about the loop itself. But benefit from the like saturation and distortion that we recorded through the analog heat from Electron. So we're gonna zoom in a bit more, we'll process and discard. That's just sort of how I do it. You can, you know, set your points any way you want and like only hit, you know, the discard button once if that's your thing. We'll get right in there on the crossing, process and discard, and then I'll zoom out again, zoom in again, whoop whoop. And there we go. Process discard, and I'll zoom out all the way. I'd like this not to have that clicky thing there that I can see at the end. So I'll highlight just the end. I'll hit process. We'll scroll over to fade out. I'll hit do it. It still looks a little wonky, so I'll double that. Maybe triple that. Boom, boom, boom. Cool. Scroll all the way back to the beginning. Process and bring the gain up on this sample. Maybe just a little bit more. Cool. And let's hear that. You hear that little, like you can hear this kind of like, it's not a clip or a click, but we can definitely hear this sample like letting up. We're hearing a little release action there, and I don't want that. So we're gonna highlight just the end again. I've highlighted a little bit more than last time. We're gonna hit process, and we're gonna scroll back over to fade out. We're gonna do that twice. Go back to the beginning of the sample and preview now. I'm just going to do that one more time so that at the end is super clean and that you don't actually hear the sample stopping, if that makes any sense what I'm saying. It's a little bit better. Fantastic. So there's our TB accent clip, and then here's the original version of that where we're going to actually, let's copy this one more time. Okay, and it's by default, it'll just put a 2 at the end of that. Fantastic. Okay, so there's our original, and then here's the second one. And what I'm going to try to do now is just to get that second note out of here. So process and discard, and you can really start seeing, you know, the individual notes as you zoom in. And that's sort of what, you know, this is all about for me. I really like this interactive editing. Obviously, I mean, this is really similar to the editing that I do on PC. I'm using a mouse on the PC and this sort of like touchscreen interactivity. Those of you with an iPad, you know exactly what I'm talking about, like how cool it is to interact with it, this way and not be using a mouse at all, you know. We're going to go ahead and, let's see here. We're going to zoom in on the beginning of this sample. It does this scroll feature too. I'm not real versed with these knobs yet, and I want to be, so forgive me as I kind of struggle with the knobs sometimes as opposed to just touching in there, you know, because it's really easy to just grab it and, you know, touch it with your fingers and interact with it. I find the knobs are kind of like a secondary learning like function for me. I don't really have this muscle memory per se yet. So we got right on the zero crossing here. If you see here, you can see right that the sound is coming up from the from the zero crossing line, and we're going to go process and discard. Okay, cool. And we'll just zoom out again, and we're gonna go into that endpoint right about there and process and do a fade out. Do it. We'll do that again, and we'll listen to this now. Listen. Absolutely perfect. Okay, let's go ahead and scroll to the next one, and I'll see if I can't grab. Yeah, there's still like a different variation kind of in there, and let's see if we can grab that. So we're gonna discard, banana. Okay, let's discard. Get in. You can really start to see. It's why I do that discard feature like a bunch of times, because every time you do it, you just get in a little closer. It's just sort of how I do it. I think we'll just get the Dana here. Yeah, processed, discard. Okay, so let's fix this ending point here. So highlight about maybe one more click. When I start the highlight, when I'm going to do this fade out, I kind of try to, see if I can't zoom in on that so you can see. Hey, cool. So I try to put the start still on kind of a zero crossing. I don't think you have to do that. It's just, you know, sort of one level of, you know, extra geekery that I sort of do when I'm editing. We'll fade that out. Let's do another one. Fade that out twice, and I'll zoom out again. Okay, so you can see how our ending point doesn't have any weird clicks on it now. And I'll go ahead and scroll in on the beginning. You can see here, if I scroll in even more maybe, whoop, whoop, that the line is actually underneath the zero crossing here. So we'll bring our start point to where the line of audio meets the zero crossing. I hope this is making sense, guys, if you're not familiar with editing process. We're going to go and discard that so that now we've got, you know, our start point really clean there. And what I'm going to do is the same thing that I've been doing on the fade outs. So we're going to do that on the beginning, and we're going to do a fade in to make sure that our audio is absolutely clean. We're going to, you know, bring our end point into its literally, I mean, if you zoom out, you can see just how little we're actually affecting here. And I'm going to hit process, and I'm going to select fade in. I'm going to select fade in, rather, and then this is going to assure us that our sample starts with a really clean, you know, start, and then that it ends with a really clean end, and that we don't get extra weird clicks or pops on either one of those. Absolutely perfect. Okay, let's see what's next. Okay, the next sample in our sample pool is this bass line that we've recorded, but since we've done a little bit of work so far, let's go ahead and save. I'll press the save button, and we'll just save that project. Fantastic. We're going to make sure we're on preview mode, and we'll hear what we've got here. See, my mic is kind of scratching. Sorry, this lavalier is kind of a odd. Wait, oh, sorry about that. Now I'm breathing heavy on the mic. Let's see if that helps. We'll go ahead and process and discard that, so we'll get that a little bit at the end there out of our view. Now this one, I'd like to see. Sounds like it's the original. Adjust the mic again here. Sounds like it's the original. You know, just clean recorded through the Audio Hub 2x4 directly into the Force with a little bit of the original delay on it from the Grooverider app. So if I sort of like zoom in a bit, now when the sample starts, it's going to start with the delay already like kind of being going. I hope that makes sense. We're going to, boy, I can't get this stupid lavalier mic to stop scratching here. I'm going to go ahead and pause for a second and see if I can't fix that. Hopefully that's a little bit better. Let's see here. I forgot what we're actually doing though. All right, we're just going to discard that, so do it. Then we'll give a listen and we'll find out which one of these is our actual start point. Okay, so it's kind of these parts in between here. I'll zoom in a little bit, whoop, whoop, and you can really sort of see what's happening. So it's really in here. Whoops, I don't want to process yet. Or is it here? Oh, for Pete's sake, hold on. Okay, I think that'll be a little bit better. I'm zooming in on the bass line here and trying to do some editing on that. Trying to find the perfect little downbeat there where it meets the zero crossing to get in and process and discard. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in to about here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, and 1. So we can definitely get into there. And again, I'm not worried too much about editing this end point because the sample will restart before it gets to that point. So we don't really need to worry about editing the end of that loop so much. We're going to go to process and discard. And we'll move on to the next sample. Some chord stabs. Cool. Let's see what we've got. Those are different. Those are all a little bit different. Okay, so what let's do here is let's go ahead and process and copy this so that we can extract a couple different ones. We'll call this like Chord Stab 1A or something. It doesn't really matter as long as they have different names. Okay, so we'll go ahead and make sure that this is Chord Stab 101, and then next to that is Chord Stab 1A. Fantastic. So we're not going to, mess up our original recording by editing and, deleting stuff out of this one. We'll go ahead and process and discard, so we're left with just this one, and we'll start zooming in on this start point here. I still find the controls on the knobs to be not really all that intuitive for me personally with the editing. I'm having a little bit more luck just doing it by hand with the screen. Discard, but I do like the full-on zoom in and out with the knob. That's easier than, sitting here having to change this and then scroll in a bit, manually, all that, whatever. So the knob really helps there, I think. Really nice kind of distorted vibe on this one. And yeah, normally I would do a fade out on the end. We're just going to leave that. There's no clicking. It's going to be fine. And for, for the sake of time, so we don't, spend 3 hours on this episode, I'm going to go ahead and not worry about fading the end of that out. We'll go ahead and scroll to the next one. This one is a more heavy, distorted version of that first one. If we kind of compare those again so that you can hear. Okay. Yeah, maybe it's too similar to keep the difference. Let's see. Okay, so let's see what we have then at the end here. What can we get? Let's trim that. So we'll discard, right? And then I'll start zooming in here. Yeah, there's kind of an interesting delay thing happening there that's a little bit different than the one that we already trimmed out. So variations are definitely a good thing when you're working in a sample-heavy environment, which is the way that I work inside of the Force. And let's see, we're going to zoom out now. Okay, normally I would fade out, but for time's sake, we're going to go ahead and pass on that for now. Here's some more, different versions of chord stabs. These sound a little bit cleaner than the last one that we just heard. Deciding which one of these I'm going to keep. I think at this point, I'm really liking this second one here. They're all pretty much the same, but you remember that I'm a big proponent for recording more than you need. And you can see visually that some of these are just a little bit different from each other when you're recording stuff out of like a synth. I mean, if there's LFOs involved in the preset at all, you're going to have tiny little, variations and whatnot as you record, multiple versions and, So let's go ahead and zoom in on, zoom in on the start of that really close to where the sound just starts coming up off of the zero crossing there, and we'll process and discard. We'll see how long it trails off for if we need to. Definitely we can come into about here and discard. And the reason that we're doing that and not just leaving that dead air at the end of the sample is you want to, be aware of how much sampling time you're using inside of the AKAI Force. This is a modern thing, but for some reason it's still a little bit limited on memory. They're saying it's got like 2 gigs of memory inside it, but I'm not really like seeing that so much per se. If we go, in fact, to our memory usage, you'll see here that based on the recordings we've done over the last 3 days, I'm almost halfway full of the internal memory here. Now, I certainly would not recommend, maxing up that internal memory. I would try to keep it, maybe 50% or lower to avoid, any sort of possible glitches in the system, etc., etc. So we're definitely going to want to continue trimming out, that dead air and stuff along the way. And since we've done quite a bit more work, I'm going to go ahead and save the project again. Okay, let's see what's up next. It's more versions of the chords here, and these look a little... Well, let's hear these first ones just to make sure I don't... Ooh. That is definitely a more distorted version than... Ooh, that one's really heavily. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and copy this to a new file so that we can edit this one freely and still get what's at the end of this file. Chord Stab Multi 5, fantastic. Okay. So here we are here, and I'm going to grab this one, process, discard, and we'll start the zooming in on the beginning of this one here. All the way in. Perfect. Process, discard, and we'll zoom out, and I'll see how long we need to get away with at the end. I'd say right about here. Discard. Now normally I would do a fade out, but for time's sake we're not going to worry about that today. Here's some more versions of the chords. Chord Stab Multi 3. I'm guessing that these, ooh, that's a really heavily distorted one. Let's get that. Let's go ahead and process this and copy so that we make sure that we don't get accidentally delete this stuff at the end. Okay, and let's go ahead and go in and process and discard, and then start process, discard, and start zooming in there. I'm sure it's a little tedious that I do that process, discard like multiple times for every sample pretty much. That's just sort of how I work. So if that's not your bag, then feel free to just, edit your points, and then you can kind of zoom back out, edit your other point, and then do the process discard. But for me, it just kind of helps keep it, more straight in my brain what I'm looking at, Really distorted version of it there. That's nice. And I'm not going to trim anything off the end of that. Fantastic. Okay, here's some more multi-stabs. It's a more mellow, less distorted version. Now again, if you guys remember, we spent 3 sessions recording this stuff, so there's lots of variations of everything. And certainly for a sample-heavy workflow, where I'm not really going to be using a lot of virtual instruments or a lot of extra drum machines or whatnot, we're just going to be mostly using, these samples. So we definitely want that variation. Over here, yeah, I like this first one, is fine. So process, discard, and whoops. Yeah, let's go ahead and zoom in on the beginning of that one and make sure that we get right up on there. Perfect. Process, discard, and zoom out. Excellent. Okay, scrolling over, we've got, let's see here. Oh, right, that big distorted one there, that's fantastic. Oh, wait, no, I got that one, and that's why we copied it over. So let's go ahead and see what these little ones at the end are, because they're obviously different than those. Whoops, I don't want to process, I just want to play. I'm not sure what we did differently in the recording process, but you can hear that and see that those are, a little bit different. So we're going to zoom in on this one, and I can see that the level's a little low. So we'll go over to gain change. We'll bring this up by like 6. Maybe bring this up by like 3 more. Cool. Start zooming in on that start point there. Looking for right when it comes up off the 0 crossing in the middle. Process, discard, start zooming out. We'll see how the end is here, how much space we have. That's fine, really, for now. Okay, here we have more chords, chord multi 6, because I wanted to get those beginning ones a while ago and save these ending ones. Let's see what we saved here. More mellow stuff. More distorted stuff. Let's go ahead and just process and discard. So we're down with these 3. I want to get both this mellow one and that distorted one. So let's copy this so we can come back to it in just a sec and not lose anything. Chord Stab multi 7. Cool. So this is multi 6, and we're going to get this first one, right? Oops. Cool. So process and then discard, and then we'll start zooming in. In fact, it might be a little bit easier to see if we bring up the volume on this just a little bit. Gain change, let's do like 7. That's too much. Thank goodness for the undo. All right, let's do process like about 4 then.
Do it. Cool. So we'll start zooming in a little further. Right to the beginning. Right, process, discard, cool. And we'll zoom out and we'll see how much time we need at the end. Can bring that in just a little bit there. Process, discard. Fantastic. Let's go to the next one. This is the one I wanted to save, that distorted one at the after that. It's the one we just got. Yeah, cool. That sounds nice. How's this one? Cool. So we'll process, discard, and start editing just that one there. I'll start zooming in, looking for that perfect start point there. All right. Process, discard, zoom out all the way. Sorry, I'm not flipping you off here. I'd say we can probably pull this into about here safely. Process, discard, cool deal. Again, we're just trimming off that dead air at the end of the sample so that we can save on sampling time and memory inside of the Force here. Now we're on to some stabs that we recorded through the Virus tape delay and also through the amp. This is the Chord again, so this is going to be a mono one. Should be quite a bit different sounding. Yeah, it's got a totally different vibe on it completely with that sort of like, you can really hear the amp aspect, I think. Ooh, that one's even maybe better. Let's see what this one here. Ooh, my gosh, this is tough. Okay, I like that. Yeah, I like that too. So what let's do is let's get both of these. So I'm going to discard, and then I'm going to process, and we'll copy this to a second sample. Okay, Chord Stab Virus tape 1, yeah. Okay, so it should make sure that it's there. It is, good deal. I'll trim off. Process, discard. We'll start zooming in on this downbeat here with the knob. See, I really like the knob for that zoom in feature, but I kind of like my finger for just moving this around. I find it more responsive or something. I like that. Yeah, maybe one click more. Okay, process, discard, good deal. And zoom out. We'll see where the end needs to go to. Listening real close. That kind of should probably just go all the way, and we're going to leave it there. I think I'd like to get yet a third version of this stab where we chop in a little further and get just those ending delays. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to process what we've got here and go to copy again. Okay, Chord Stab Virus tape delay 2, do it. Good deal. And what I want to do is just go right to that one and see if maybe this one, if I zoom way in, we get this chilled thing. It's a different thing. It doesn't have that aggressive start to it, you know, and we can discard, and then we can bring this way up in volume, like way up in volume. So gain change, maybe like 10, do it. Maybe even more. Let's do it another 6. This is all just arbitrary, just so we can, you know, get it. We'll mix these levels as we're, you know, arranging the track and whatnot. But for now, we just want to make sure that we're getting decent levels on all the samples and that everything's got a really clean start point and nothing's got any clicking or popping unless we want that specifically for like lo-fi stuff or whatnot. Yeah, I like that. Okay, so discard. We'll zoom out and see how the end is. You can really hear the hum coming through from the amp on this. So when I play this back to back with like a clean stab, you'll really hear the difference in the mix. And we can use that to our advantage, I think. Awesome. Well, let's try something. Let's try to do a fade out. Actually, what let's do is let's leave that first hit alone completely, but let's fade out everything after that, and that will gently start fading out the amp hum as well in the sample, and that should be really nice. Let's see here. Fade out, do it. We're doing this whole section here. I'm going to do it twice, fade out, do it, and then we'll go back to the beginning and play that, and we'll hear, hopefully, the noise fading out this time. That is absolutely perfect. And that's how we can get away with like recording some noisy stuff, but not ending up with like that complete just wash of amp noise, of hum going through the whole mix. We are going to be adding our own noise and our own, you know, dirt layers and hums and whatnot, but we're going to be controlling exactly how that works. We definitely want our samples like this to be as clean as possible. We're going to go ahead and go back one because I still need to get this second stab. So we're going to process, discard, and I'm going to start zooming in on the beginning of this one. Ooh, filthy. Discard, do it. Okay, and we'll zoom back out and we'll see where the end needs to go to. Whoops. Got a little off somehow from which one we were editing, so I'm gonna just kind of get back into place here. So we'll do a fade out on this one because it needed one. I don't know if this is the one I just did it on or whether it's a different one. Okay, cool. And then definitely a lot of listening as you do the editing, you know. Okay, cool. So we're caught up there. We'll start dealing with these chords that we recorded through the Big Sky. This should be awesome. Okay, let's bring the volume up by default because I can see it's a little bit low here. Do it. Cool. And then you can see there's 2 hits of that chord. I just want 1. So we're going to zoom in and we're going to try to get it just where it's lifting up from the 0 crossing there. That's what I'm talking about. And we'll do a discard, and we'll do a zoom out. And actually, I think I'd like to get this level a little bit hotter still. I like to get the volume on the source material as hot as possible. In this case, the source material is these samples, you know. I tried to get a decent level recording it in, and then as we're doing the editing, I'll, you know, embellish on that, for lack of a better word. That's awesome, and we're just going to leave that as it is for now and move on to the next one. Chords, Big Sky 1. Let's go ahead and discard, and then let's bring this volume up on this one as well. Let's do a gain change by like 13, bring it way up. Ooh, that's too much. Thank goodness for undo. Process, how about like 8? Cool deal, and let's start zooming in here and grab that on the super close 0 crossing. To where maybe right. And now if you're dealing with a stereo file as we are, you're going to have, you know, 2 lines, a left channel and a right channel. And if the sound is particularly stereo sound, these might not always match. And you might need to do your, you know, just best sort of judgment per se on where you think the 0 crossing is. And let's say that it wasn't real precise, you know, and you didn't get it like perfect, okay, but you got it close. You can discard that. Zoom out, grab your endpoint, right? Start zooming in. Whoops. Bring your endpoint way in, like way in, right? And then process and do a fade in. Do it. And that way you're now positive that the beginning of that at the beginning of that sample starts on a 0 crossing, which is what we're after. I'm just going to leave the end of these as it is for now. We'll bring the volume up on this one here. Now, if this kind of stuff seems like ridiculously tedious to you, then maybe the sound design and the recording, you know, stages aren't really your bag. And what you can do if you're not really into this kind of stuff is, you know, work with sample packs and stuff like that, and not worry about recording your own content and editing your own content, but trying to find content that's already made. Because this definitely adds, you know, quite a bit of time. You guys know I'm about putting in the hours though, so if you want, you know, to make your music sound like you per se and not sound like somebody else, I definitely, you know, recommend recording at least some of your own stuff when you're working on a new project. All right, cool. And let's move to the next one. Big Sky 3, cool. We'll go ahead and get a big old gain change on this. All right, and we'll start to zooming in there. Oh yeah, process, discard. That's so sweet. Okay, let's get a little bit more volume on this one as well. Gain change. Let's do 3 more. Let's do 3 more again. Do it. Get a nice hot level there. Oh, fantastic. And I'm going to leave, you know, the end here so that we have plenty of, you know, room to work with this sound. It's Big Sky 4. And I'll go ahead and set that start point in a little bit, and we'll start zooming in. We'll start the gain change process on these. Zoom in a little more. There we go. Process, discard. And there's a little click there that I actually really like is the thing. And I'm wondering if we zoom in, you can see that little tiny click thing there. Right there. And so if I keep zooming in, I can kind of see that it has got its own little zero crossing right there. And if I go process and discard, now you can hear this tiny, tiny little transient on the start of the sound, which I'm actually into, rather than having it sound like a click in the recording, which I'm not into. And so I'm going way in here to the start point of that sample, way in, and we're going to go process and fade in. Good deal. Whoops. Bring that in point. I'm a little screwy with this, sorry. Whoop. All right. There we go. And that's beautiful. We're going to go ahead and do a gain change to bring this up. That's an awesome texture. Okay. Here's a Big Sky 5. Oh, that's nice. Let's start bringing this gain change up. And do it again. I see. Let's go ahead and get in there. Right where it has a nice... this is what I meant about stereo file. It's a little bit different on the left and the right, which is fine. We're going to go ahead and do a process and a discard. I'm going to zoom out. We're going to bring the endpoint way in, and I'm going to start zooming it in so that I can do a tiny little fade in on just the beginning of this sound. Now, there's a way that you can use 2 fingers, you know, on the knobs to move that endpoint at the same time. I'm just not really versed at that workflow at this point. You know, there's only so many hours in the day to work with the gear, guys. So for now, this is how I'm doing it and how I'm feeling comfortable working with it. That may change over time, you know, as I spend more time with this unit. Okay. Excellent. We change to a new clip and we'll keep going, guys. My neighbor's got the lawnmower on now, so I hope that that's not coming through too much, but I really need to get going on this, so can't really wait around. I hope there's not a lot of lawnmower sound coming through all of a sudden. We're zooming in on the next one. That looks great. We're going to discard, and let's go ahead and bring the volume up on this one a little bit, and we'll do a gain change, not quite as much as before. Okay. Ooh, that one's very loud. Sorry about that. I'm gonna well, we'll leave that endpoint for now, and we'll just move on to the next one. Cool. Here's some more versions of the chords. These are ones that we got out of the amp. So these are the mono recordings. Let's see what we got here. Are these all the same? Ooh. I like that one. Yeah, I have a favorite, and it's this one, I believe it was. Yeah, okay. We're going to separate that from the other ones there and discard. Cool. So you can see here that we're kind of got a soft attack on that first note on this one, and I like that. So we're going to zoom in. Get right up on that start point there and do a process and a discard. Fantastic. And what's this actually? Maybe we just get here. Nope, I want that little squishy thing there to work with maybe. Let's see how the end is. That's actually really nice, but let's leave both of these, transient pieces there, and let's fade out this whole section here really gently and slowly so that we kind of eliminate the amp hum noise that's coming through in sort of that ending section of the sample there. We're going to do a fade out, and we're going to do this maybe twice. We can always undo if it's no good, and we'll listen back to that. Let's do an undo, because I think we're losing too much of the delay with that second fade out. Awesome. So our amp hum is kind of gone here, but now we're just sort of gently fading out. Let's move on here. And this is another version of the chord loop. Let's see what this sounds like. That's awesome. Let's go ahead and go in and bring the volume up just a little bit on this before we start the editing. Gain change, let's do like 3. Awesome. And then let's get rid of some extra stuff that we don't need. I'll get you can kind of see that it's repeating a pattern here. I'll get, like 2 versions of that through. We'll go ahead and figure this out here. I'll start by zooming in on that start point. Really close, right? All right. And we'll do a discard. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 2, 3, 4. 3, 2, 3, 4. 4, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so I can get rid of this one here. Discard. Now we've got a 4-bar loop saved there, and I'll go ahead and move on to the next one. See what we got here. There's a click in that one. I'm not caring for that. That one's doable. Really high pitched. I mean, that one's got somehow the less filter cutoff on it. I like that one the best so far. Click. Another click. And let's hear that last one just in case. Compared to this one. Those are different. I'd like to get them both. Let's discard. Chord Loop 3. Let's go. Copy chord loop, let's go 3A then, 3, chord loop 3A, fantastic. Okay, do it. Okay, so let's get that first one, and then we want to get that last one. So process, discard, start zooming in on this downbeat here. And there we go, process, discard, zoom out. Okay, let's leave the transient alone and zoom in just past it. Do a fade out. See what that sounds like. That's much better. Okay, and let's see. With the 3A is where we wanted this last one. So we'll go process, discard. I'll start zooming in to the very beginning of that one. Discard, do it. Okay, I'm going to leave these first 2, transient attack pieces there, and we'll do a fade out on the end and see if that works or if that's maybe too dramatic. That might lose too much of our delay. Let's find out. Yeah, I don't care for that. Let's undo and see what our other options might be here. Let's just sort of leave that the way it is for now and move on then. Here's another chords stuff. This is actually a loop here. Oh. Let me check that we're not getting too loud of a level for you guys there. Sorry about that mic scratch in there. Ooh, I like kind of when it got in and was starting on this second one. Yeah, so let's go ahead and assume that this one is going to be our very start. We'll zoom way in, way in, way in, way in. My mic is scratching again. Let's see if I can't turn this a little bit. And we'll process and do a discard. Can you still hear me? Check 1. And now we'll zoom out. And we'll try to count this out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4, boom. So if we want to keep 4 bars of this, I can safely trim right past that downbeat of bar 5. I don't need to worry too much about the end of these. You'll see that when we start, actually arranging it out. So for now, I'm just going to process and discard, and we're going to leave the end of that as it is. The level's fine there, and we'll move forward. There's some chords again. It's gorgeous. Is this one different? Yes. Okay, I'd like to get both of these. So let's go ahead and copy. And I'll just put an A at the end of that so that I know that that one's for the A. I'm going to bring this endpoint in quite a bit and separate these. I think what I want is that second half. Nope, we want here, pop, pop, within that delay on it. Yeah, see if I can get right in on that maybe. Okay, we're going to choose here and then discard, and we're going to do that fade in at the beginning that I like to do when I'm not 100% confident on, the 0 crossing point there at the beginning. It's a little wonky. So we're going to grab just this little bit of that beginning sample, and we'll do a fade in. This is going to prevent like any possible clicks where we don't want them. Bring that back to the end. Oh, this mic will not stop. I got to figure out a different way to do this for next time, I guess. Okay. Whoop. Let's see how long of that tail we actually need. Oh, cool. I could say we can go quite a bit there. And we'll do a process discard. Good deal. Let's just double check that the end is fine. Yeah, okay. If it weren't for time's sake, I'd be doing little tiny fade outs on the end of pretty much all these. But, for today's sake, we're not going to worry about that. Okay, I don't like that little click on the second half of that. See what we got here? Okay, so we're going to get it anyway. And what I'm going to do is copy this to another one so that we can make sure we get both. I'm going to call this A again, 6A, cool deal. And let's get that first one. Whoops, I don't need to. Whoop, there we go. Discard, cool. And so let's zoom in a bit and get it right on the 0 crossing here. Process, discard, zoom out. Cool, we're just gonna leave that for now. Chord step 3, what do we got here? Definitely you can just see right off the jump that there's, 2 different versions of this, and I definitely want to get them both. So we're gonna go ahead and copy this to an A right off the jump. Copy to, I've already got a 6A, so we'll just call this, like, it doesn't matter really, but we'll just call this a 7A, right? Cool. And then so we'll get this first one, process, discard. Let's bring the volume up on this a little bit. If you're still watching, I salute you. I know a lot of this is boring to a lot of people and discard, but I mean, how else are you going to do the work other than, doing the work, right? If this kind of stuff is, really tedious for you, then don't worry about being a sound designer. Just worry about being a producer. Buy some samples and get to work. We'll do some do it, discard there. We'll zoom out. There's no click. It fades out a little sooner than I would like, but we're going to leave that for now. We'll just go on to the next one. It's really nice that I can see that these are individually different hits. I mean, you can see that they're not the same. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and keep you know, getting the variations of these. So I'm going to do a copy, and let's see, this is going to be like 8A, right? Do it. But then also, I'm going to want that last one in there. So we're going to process again and copy this to 8B. Okay, do it. Fantastic. Now we'll get the first one, process, discard, and I'll start zooming in here on the beginning. You can see, I mean, it's just pretty much the same thing over and over again. You want to get right at the beginning of your sounds, and you want to make sure that nothing is clipping at the end of your sounds, or clicking, you know, and you want to make sure that you've got a decent level, and you're not too low, and that if it's, you know, distorted and too loud, delete that and start, you know, recording that one again. Don't try to use the samples if they're, you know, past the zero crossing and they're clipping. Don't even bother. Okay, again, I would like more, you know, delay on that, but it's not clipping or clicking rather, so we're just going to leave that for now. More chords. That one's. Is there differences here? Yes. Okay. Discard, and then I'm going to copy this one, process. Copy, we're going to call this one 9A. Cool. And then I'll make sure we get both of those. If you accidentally, you know, get two, you know, recordings of sound that are really, really similar, oh no, what a problem to have, right? I mean, problem, let's see, discard, you know, see how the end is here. Probably get just a tiny bit off of the end there to save a little bit more on sampling room. Now that we've been doing this, we're actually been adding to the sample pool, really, because I've been copying some of these, you know. So 6A, we're going to go ahead and get this second one then. Yeah, exactly. Discard, and we'll see which part of this we want. I think I might want to start it on the big transient there. Yeah, oh my goodness, abso-friggin-lutely. Okay, let's start zooming in on that downbeat right off the zero crossing. Process, discard, do it. Maybe bring the end a little. And on this one, I would like to do a fade out, starting right about there. Try to do this just real quick. Fade out. Fade out. Do it. Cool. And we'll hear that. Oh, clean. That's what I am talking about. Okay. Yeah, here's the 6A1. So I'm guessing I probably wanted to keep that thing at the end. Let's see what that is. Oh, yes, I did. Okay, so discard. And let's start the zoom. Whoops. Start the zoom in there. Whoops. Maybe go back a little bit more. Cool. Right about there, I think. Process, discard, zoom out, hear it. I think we'll probably bring that in about there. Process, discard, go on to the next one. I'm going to switch to a different clip and we'll keep going. I know this is a long process, guys, and I appreciate your patience. For those of you who are still watching, let's go ahead and do a discard on that one there. What let's do maybe is see about just getting that last one, that last hit. What does that sound like? Maybe. Let's do a discard, and let's bring the volume up on this so I can see it and hear it a little better. And you see there's kind of like a flam on the downbeat. Let's see if we can zoom in, and what happens if we try to fix that. Can we? I think so. So we'll get a process and a discard there, and then we'll do that fade in at the beginning thing that I like to do if I'm not real sure about the beginning hitting the zero crossing. I'm going to zoom way in on the beginning here, like way in, right? And we're going to do process, fade in. Cool, do it. And we're going to do that one more time. Good deal. And now start bringing this endpoint back to... Okay, and now we're up to some hi-hats. These are hats that we recorded through the amp, so they're mono hats here. I think what we'll do here is just trim out these individual hits so that we can maybe do some hi-hat programming of our own. We're going to go ahead and copy this into hi-hats amp 1A and do it. Fantastic. Now on the first one, let's just go ahead and go in here and trim out one of these individual hits. Okay, so we basically got 2 hits. We've got a dun 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 happening. So if I go in here, we can see those 2 hits basically. I'd like to get both of those hits individually. So we're gonna go ahead and discard that, and I'll get the first one. Gonna zoom in a bit so that I can get absolutely as much of that hat as I can before we process and discard. Cool deal. Now we'll zoom in on the beginning and get right in on that 0 crossing. Do it. Okay, so now we have a hi-hat one-shot that was recorded through the amp the other day. That's nice. Now we'll get that second one that had some reverb baked into it. Go ahead and process and discard, and we'll zoom right on in there to that start point. Fantastic. And process, discard, do it. Fantastic. So we have kind of a dry one. All we need there. In fact, let's go ahead and go into this just really quick and do a fade out at the end of that one, just to make me happy. Better. And okay, here we have some hats that were recorded through the Big Sky. Their level's a little bit low, so we're going to bring that up. I'm going to bring that up just a little bit more. Okay, and I'll start, maybe chopping into here a bit so that we'll get the hats with the reverb already kicked in per se. Or maybe I won't. Maybe we'll just see what happens if I started at the beginning. We'll go to discard. Yeah, I definitely want those dry versions too. So let's copy this into a new file so that we can get all of those. This is going to be Big Sky 1A, do it. And I also want to get the loop here, so we're going to call this Big Sky 1B, do it. Now we've got 2 versions so that when I start editing this one, we still have other ones to go back to. Delete. Let's just get that first hit there. Process, discard, get right up in here. Process, discard, and then find that clean start point. Get right in there. All right. So that, if you listen real close here, those are 3 different hi-hat sounds, you know what I'm saying? And that's where the variation is really important in recording all these different variations. Discard, and let's get that second hit. It's right there. Process, discard. Let's bring the volume up on this one quite a bit. Gain change, let's do 6 for now. Cool, process. Whoops, no, I didn't want to gain change again. Undo, process, discard, rather. And we'll start zooming in on that downbeat. Okay, process, discard, good deal. We've got all these different hats to work with. This is awesome. And let's see, does it get different as it goes on? Yeah, it becomes some reverb on it and stuff. So let's get creative. Let's discard that, right? And then let's save this as a separate one so we can get 2 hats out of this reverb one. We're going to go ahead and go to copy. And this is like a big hand, this 1C, good deal, do it. And let's see, where can we get a nice reverby looking hit there? Ooh, there it is. Let's bring that in. Right about there, and process, discard. Cool. Let's bring the volume up on this so that we can see what we're doing and hear what we're doing better. Good deal. Let's get right in there on that downbeat. Discard. Zoom out. Cool, and we'll just get that end off of there. Process, discard. little bit of, like you can hear the end per se. So we'll grab the end and we'll go fade out, do it, and we'll hear that. Better, okay. And now we want to get another one of these reverb hats from the Big Sky. How about this one here? But it's going to be short. But it's hard to explain, but it's being run through the reverb, even though we're not getting the reverb tail on it. So it's still a different variation sonically from the others. And let's zoom in here, maybe get right in there. Process, discard, good deal. So I want a tiny little fade out at the end here. Fade out, come on, fade out, do it, good deal. All right, that's what I'm talking about. Okay, so now we're up to the kick. Fantastic. This is a version of the kick that we recorded through the Broken Beauty preset on the Electribe Analog Heat. We're gonna go ahead and just start trimming this out. And what I want here is I want just a one shot of the kick drum so that we can program that in on our own. And it'll be super tight and precise with our beat, without worrying about trying to loop it or anything like that. Discard. Not that we, you know, couldn't do it that way. We could most definitely do it that way. I'm just choosing to do it this way. I'm going to zoom right in on the end here and process and discard. And then I'm going to get the tiniest little fade out here at the end of this kick, like tiny, tiny, tiny amount, right? Process, fade out, do it. Good deal. Whoop. And here we have our kick through the Broken Beauty preset on the Analog Heat MK2. Let's see what happens if we go ahead and just normalize that kick drum to its maximum volume. I like to normalize the kick drums. Kick drums are typically the loudest thing in the mix, at least for my music. That's very nice, so we'll move on. Here's a kick with a recorded through the parallel distortion on the Analog Heat, and we'll just zoom right into the middle there where it's going, and I'll just trim one of these out. In fact, I kind of like the look of that one better. No real reason. Just have a gut feeling about it. And we'll zoom in here at the end, and we're gonna, whoops. There we go. We'll get right in there at the end, process, discard. And here we can get right in at the beginning. Like right in there. Oh yeah, process, discard. And now we've got a version of this kick through the parallel distortion effect. Let's go ahead and get rid of that click at the end. Highlight just a tiny little bit and fade out. Good deal. And normalize this. Normalize. Normalize is just making the maximum amount of volume in the sample without any sort of clipping happening. You're just getting the volume up to the absolute closest to 0.00 that you can get it. Okay, and here's yet another version of the kick drum. So we'll zoom into about the middle section. Actually, I'm thinking that one is the one I want right there. So process, discard, and then start trimming in on it. Fantastic. Discard, do it, and let's just do the same thing on, whoops, on the end point here. And let's normalize this like the others. I pretty much always normalize my kick drums if I'm using something like the AKAI Force. And if I'm doing it on the computer, I'm going to be editing all this stuff in SoundForge. Process, fade out, do it. Oh, absolutely. And let's move on. And here's our kick impact that we've got. And let's discard. Let's bring the volume up on this. Being as though this is an effect and not, you know, an actual kick, I don't need to normalize it per se, but we definitely want to get, you know, the volume up to a decent level. Okay, process. Discard. Ooh, that's exactly what I wanted. It's nice to get to hear these on headphones, real clean now. We got completely clean sound today. I'm not using the speakers or... I think maybe right about there. We'll discard that. Cool deal. Kick Impact 2. How's this one sound? A little bit different with kind of a whip on it. We'll discard some of that extras and start zooming in on that start point there. And we'll process and discard. We'll see how the end is here. I think what we'll do is highlight just past the transient of the kick impact here, so that's unaffected. And then we'll go process fade out and hear the whole thing. That sounds very natural and is exactly what I'm after. Let's check out Kick Impact 3. Let's bring the volume up on this. Let's go ahead and normalize it and see what happens, eh? Normalize. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Let's get right in there on that start point. Process, discard, do it. I'm going to do that same thing here. We're going to leave the transient alone, so it's completely unaffected by anything I'm doing, and we're going to do a fade out. This is probably way more than we'd ever need, which is a good thing. I mean, I don't even need to hear the full thing. There's definitely enough there. Here's Kick Impact 4. I remember this one, I turned the amount up really hard so that we lost our transient there. And we get a lot of heavy noise. Let's see how this one sounds. Do it. Bring the gain up. And yeah, it's really just basically that noise. You get zero transient on this one. And we could layer this with another sound that's got a transient and do something creative later. Maybe, you know. Not necessarily that we're going to do every single technique in the book along the way per se, but it's really good to set yourself up with the sonic material in which to do that kind of stuff along the way. Let's do another gain change on here by about 5, right? Cool. And let's just highlight the ending part and do a fade out on this one. Do it. Cool. Yeah, that's like ridiculously more than enough of that we'll need there. Here's a version of the kick going through the Virus Darkstar and then through the amp. So it's a mono recording and should probably be pretty distorted. If you look at it visually, you can kind of see that there's some differences sonically along the way. And this was me tweaking the EQ as we were recording this. So we'll kind of maybe give a listen and decide which stuff we want to trim out here. So kind of thin there, even thinner. Oh, and this has that distortion on it. Okay, this is cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to get ourselves a couple of different copies of this one. We'll call this Amp 1A, do it, and then we'll do that one more time. And we'll call this Amp 1B, do it. Good deal. And I'm going to get a kick from the beginning, a kick from the middle, and a kick from the end. Whoops, I don't want to do that. I want to discard, do it. Good deal. How about this one? Process, discard. Cool, now I can get a better idea of what I'm looking at here. Zoom right into that zero crossing, discard, zoom out, zoom into the beginning. Get it right. That's interesting. I think we're gonna, yeah, chop that right in to about, one more. There it is. Discard. Fantastic. So here's a version of the kick through the Virus, distortion and saturation, and then through that amp. Didn't mean to hit the repeat button. Cool. And now let's 1A. So let's grab one from kind of this middle area where that distortion was happening. Yeah. Discard. Okay. that's good. Process, discard, and we'll just tighten up this start point. Right in there. There we go. Now we've got another version of the kick. Let's normalize this one as well. I think we didn't normalize that last one, so I'll go back and do that. Cool. Yeah, let's just, for fun, normalize that. And let's grab one from the end. Yeah, where it's really just nonsensically distorted here. Maybe this last hit with the big tail, how does that sound? Can we pull something off there? Yeah, absolutely. Let's go ahead and just grab this little filthy guy here. Again, I don't know necessarily that we're going to use all of these samples, but this is the creative part of the process where I'm just, you know, kind of being a sound designer and kind of, you know, getting us some sonic material to work with. Because what are you going to work with otherwise? You're going to have to get a sample pack or something, you know, if you don't want to make your own material. So we'll go ahead and highlight all of that, leaving the transient in place, and we're going to do a fade out there. I might actually do 2 fade outs there and see what happens. Bring that back to the beginning. Am I really back to the beginning? Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Oh, that's what I thought. I'm not back to the beginning. There we go with that big transient. Ooh. I like that little filth that sort of happens around this area and the sound. That's nice. Okay, moving on. Okay, so this is yet another version of us recording the kick through the amp. Probably gonna have different EQ and stuff. That's what I want right there. So let's go discard, and then let's normalize this so that it's as loud as possible. Let's grab one of these. Process, discard. We'll go in on the beginning. Process, discard. And we'll go in on this end. We'll go ahead and normalize this and do a tiniest little fade out at the end here. Excellent. Okay, so here's some miscellaneous noise that I brought in from the Dean's Noise Candy sample pack that I'm working on. We don't need to edit this one. Yay! This is a really low miscellaneous rumble. This might have been like some pipes at the bottom of a parking garage, maybe. Got that low rumble, something we may or may not be using. Here's another miscellaneous noise sample from that pack that we brought in. Let's get a little more volume on this for now. This is like a white noise kind of a sample. We can do a lot with something like this. We can do some filtering and create risers, create downfalls, or we can just kind of, you know, blend this subtly in the background for a noise layer. Here's the ride cymbal. Let's go ahead and change the clip and I'll start editing this one. We're definitely making progress. We're up to the R's now, guys. Let's go ahead and hear what this beginning sounds like. Bum, 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 bum. I see, so it'd be here. I'm going to get a 1-bar loop of this. We could get more, but I don't really feel like that's necessary per se. Let's start with getting a really tight downbeat. I like on this one, you can, you know, sort of see that there's some character bleeding through the recording here of some noise in the background that would not have been there if we would have just exported this stuff all out clean from the Grooverider app. You know, we're definitely getting ourselves a lot of character and personality baked into the sounds that we recorded, and that's a good thing. So here's our beginning of the downbeat again. So if I trim it right, I really don't, if we're worrying about a loop, I don't need to worry about the end of the loop so much. Again, I keep saying that and I haven't shown you yet, but we'll get to that, I promise. Not in this video, it'll be when we're actually arranging this out. Okay, so there's the ride, right? And then here's a version of the ride through the amplifier. So it's mono, and let's see what it sounds like. a lot more harsh and dirty. And what do these sound like? Maybe I brought the EQ down or something. I did. So it's kind of more of a lo-fi ride, and this is kind of more of a smack you in the face with high-end ride. Let's delete that stuff and work just with these here. And I think rather than worry about a loop, we'll go ahead and maybe just get a one shot of this that we can program some stuff with. There's two distinct hits here. So what we're going to do is copy this one so that we can get both of those hits. We're going to copy this to ride amp 1A, do it, and make sure that it's there, and it is, good deal. So we'll get the first one, discard, so I can see what I'm working with a little better. Let's bring the gain up on this so that our sample isn't quite so low. Whoops, did I do that wrong? Do it, cool. And let's start zooming in. All right, process, discard, zoom out, and start zooming in on this end one. Cool, process, do it. Whoop, I'm scrolling when I don't need to be scrolling. Sorry about that, whoops. Something also was odd there. Let's find out what's that about. That kick impact didn't get the start point fixed. Good deal. All right. Whoop, whoop. Made so much progress today. This is fantastic. Get a little bit more volume on this, eh? Gain change. Cool. Let's do that again. Awesome. Okay, so that second one's a little bit different, and that's what I wanted to get there. So process, discard, and let's do the gain change. Yeah. All right. Cool, now we got a nice hot level there. We'll start editing the start point. Zoom in there. All right, process, and whoops, discard, do it. That's excellent. So now we've got these different versions, you know. This one is a little, you can see that they're, you know, just the tiniest little bit different. And that's what it's all about when you're dealing with the, you know, really heavy sample-based workflow, getting these variations in here. Here's a ride that we recorded through the Big Sky. Definitely could have gotten a hotter level on that. So let's bring this up quite a bit. And again, too much. Just undo. Let's try another 4. There we go. Nice hot level on this ride here. That's really nice. Just a nice big reverb tail on the ride. Go ahead and start chopping this out. We'll go ahead and get the start point sorted. Whoop. And process, discard, do it. Zoom out. I actually like the fact that it's so long, but we are going to do a little bit of a fade out in that last little bit there. Okay, fade out, do it. And moving on to the next. Here's some ride with the hats and delay. So we'll go ahead and trim a little bit of this out as a loop. Okay, it looks like there might be 2 different versions here. Let's hear the difference. Really clean and a great sounding. And what is this? That's the ride and stuff. Cool. Let me go ahead and turn this into 2 samples with the copy function so that we can get both of these. So rides and hats with delay 1A. Fantastic. Do it. We'll go ahead and start trimming in on this beginning here. Discard. So it takes a little bit for the delay to start going. And what we're going to do is we're going to try to find the downbeat somewhere in this section over here once the delay is already going in the mix. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so I can see these notes a little better. Maybe I'll just put it here. I'm not sure exactly which of these is the downbeat that was originally there, but it doesn't really matter because we're gonna be using these for like different rhythms and whatnot. Discard. So if I start there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, that's kind of cool. And we can always shift this around as needed later in the mix as well. Let's go ahead and get a little bit of this second half now. Discard. So here I am just going to start right on that downbeat. That sounds pretty good. Maybe we'll get like 2 bars of this so that we can have the ride loop going if we want. Not worry about always programming everything ourselves. Whoops, I'm still doing that. I got this weird habit now of scrolling when I don't need to. Going back to that ride loop. Okay. Here we are. 2, 3, 4, and 3, 2. Okay, so that's really our downbeat of the third measure. If you didn't catch that, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3. So that's our downbeat of the third measure. We'll just leave that there, and I'll discard this. We'll move on to the next. What do we got? We've got the snare through the amp. Cool, cool, all right. Looks like I have a different sort of thing happening here. Okay, so I've got it at the beginning where I've left the EQ all the way up, but then these I've turned like the highs down and stuff. So let's get this variation. We're gonna go into the copy. We're gonna call this, you know, amp 2, snare amp 2A. That way we can get both. 1, 2A, good deal. Okay, so let's get the first one here. Process, discard. Yeah, I want that. Oh yeah. Discard, do it, and then start zooming in on the beginning there. Discard. All right. And let's get that second one. Actually, I'm going to need to get 3 out of this, so we're going to copy this one more time. I'm going to call this 2B. Do it. Good deal. Now I can trim out these, but then still come back to the next one and get something down there that has the highs turned down as we recorded it. Trim, so do it. And there is our snare. Get that right about there. Process, discard, do it. And we'll start getting in on this downbeat now. Right on there. Oh yeah. Discard, do it, do it. Hot. All right. Now here's 2B so that we can go back to the end here and pick out one of these hits for ourselves. Maybe that very last hit with a nice amount of reverb trail off. Let's see. Yeah, absolutely. So process and discard and then get in here. Didn't need to do that again just yet, but it is what it is. And process, do it. Here I am doing that thing again. All right, so let me try to fix that. There we go. Ooh, I like that. But what let's do is kind of keep the meat of the sound untouched, and then just that extra part of the tail. Let's do a fade out on that and see what that sounds like. Yes, that is exactly what I'm talking about. Let's go ahead and normalize this so it's really big and loud too. Oh, that's what I'm talking about. All right, so here's some more snare stuff. These are like the dry versions of that. But then also threw some reverb at the end. Let's bring this up in volume. Let's just normalize this so we can see it really easy. Let's go ahead and copy this to a different sample as well so that we can get different versions of this. This is our big snare, it says. So big snare 1 and big snare 1A. Now let's go in where it's clean at the beginning and start chopping these out. Okay, we've actually got a clean version of both the snare and the clap here. Okay, so that's perfect. I'm going to just go in here, process, discard. We're going to process and normalize. Get these nice and loud. We'll go to process and copy so that I can make 2 sounds, and then we can get both of these individually. Big snare 1C, do it. And let's go in on that start beat. Process, discard, cool. Probably get a little bit, whoops. Get that loop thing off there. Probably get a little bit of the end off as well. That is a nice clean snare sample. Boom. All right, let's make sure we got that normalized. Fantastic. And then let's get the second one. Oops, I'm normalizing, and what I want to be doing is discarding. That's cool, no worries, and here it is. Rather, yes, that's what we want. Process, discard. So we'll get a nice, dry, clean version of the clap. Then I was watching this video, and the guy gave us the clap. It was awful. All right, snares, clap. I keep doing that scroll when I don't have to thing. Sorry. Perfect. And we already just got both of those actually, so I can delete this at this point. Delete sample, yes. Okay. It's putting us back to the beginning, so I'll scroll to where we were. Oh, someone's knocking on my door, so give me just 1 sec. Ooh, super cool, you guys. I'm assuming if you're watching this far that you guys are probably my friends, and I can safe to say that we just got a package from Japan, which should be really interesting to play with soon. Let's see here. We're going to go ahead and discard that space. We'll bring this one up in volume. Let's see here. Good deal. And let's zoom in. This looks like it's a clap through a whole lot of reverb here from the big sky, which should be really delicious. Process, discard. Let's normalize this as well. Drum sounds are definitely it's something that you can normalize and get away with for the most part to get the source level as hot as possible, but always use your judgment as you listen to it afterwards. If it sounds too hot or distorted, then just do an undo. We'll see exactly how long of a tail we need to leave for this. Because you can always, you know, not have it play back that long when you're using it in the track. But if you cut it now too short and you wish you had it longer later, you're out of luck. So go ahead and discard, and we'll do just a fade out here at the end of this one. Fade out. Good deal. Put that back at the beginning. Make sure it's at the beginning. Good deal. And we'll move on. Here we have another one called Snares and Claps. This must be a different variation. Sounds pretty much the same as what we've already got here. That doesn't, though. So let's see what these ones are. Okay, so these are just more different reverb variations. We're going to go ahead and discard, and then I'm going to copy this one so that I can get both of those variations as well. And call this like one, whoops, like one, whoops, like one C, do it. Good deal. And so, yeah, I want the snare with all that. Discard. We'll trim up on the begin, and we'll do a normalize. And we'll start trimming, whoops, cancel the beginning here. Okay. Get right in on that. Process, discard. Probably get this in about there and delete. And then we'll move on to the next one, which I believe will have us that clap. Yeah, with some reverb. Cool deal. Discard and start zooming in on this start point. Okay, discard. Oh, that's really nice. We'll normalize that. Cool. And what else we got here? We've got a stab from the amp. You can hear that amp noise, which is kind of a bonus for us, as is that stab. You can see there's some different variations here, so let's copy this out so we can get those variations. This is going to be stab amp 4A, okay. And let's get that second one rather, because there's some space after it that I like. Process, discard. And start zooming in. A little too much. Process, discard. Put it right about here, chop it, leave our, the meat of our transient there and do a fade out on this last part and see how that works. Fade out, do it. That's exactly what I want. My goal here is to like leave a little bit of that hiss in so that it feels like kind of an analog recording, but not leave just a big noise floor at the end of the sample where it's just going for no reason. That stuff we'll put in very precisely by hand. Let's see here how this sounds. Some more stabs through the amp. I like the second one. So let's copy this over so that we can get all of these sounds out of this one. This is like 4D or something. Whoops. 4D. It doesn't really matter as long as it has a different, thing that you can get back to. We'll copy that out. Delete that. Get in on this start point here. Process, discard. That one has maybe a little bit too much distortion on the beginning. Can we kind of maybe chop in to it and get a cleaner something? Let's see what happens here. If I get right about, I don't know, here on the, what does that do? Ooh, okay. This is an interesting thing. Let me get all the way in. Process, discard. Good deal. And now I'd like to bring the end over, right? Like all the way over. Perfect. Put it on a zero crossing. You don't have to. It's just something that I do. I don't know. I think it might help mathematically somehow, but I'm not really sure. Okay, so fade in. Good deal. And then we should have this little tweaky variation that's real subtle of our chord stab. Yeah, with all that hiss at the end. So we'll get in here. Whoops, I screwed that up, didn't I? And we'll discard that, leave the meat of our sound alone, and do a fade out on just that ending part. And listen to that. Make sure we didn't fade out too much of that reverb tail. Cool little like ghost note hit we'll get in later. Those are two different versions right there. So we'll do a discard and then we'll copy this out so we can get both of those. We'll call this like 4E. Do it. And I'll get the first one, process, delete. We'll get in here and I'll do a fade. Sorry, won't do a fade rather, but I'll get in on the start point. I'm trying to go quickly because I know this is a long one, guys. I apologize, but I mean, this is what it takes, It's what it takes. Get just a tiny little bit more off the end of that, and we'll discard, and then I want to bring the volume up on this one a little. Let's do that. Okay. And we'll leave our stab alone with the meat of it, and we'll just do a fade out on that last part there. Fade out, and we'll hear that. Yeah, see how it sounds like we're trailing off naturally still? That's what I'm after. More versions of that stab. What do we got here? Is this different? It is, in fact. So I want both of these here. Okay, and let's, I don't think we actually need to copy this again, but I'm going to just in case. We're going to call this like 4F or whatever, and do it. Cool, I'll get the first one, process, discard, and I'll move in on the start here. Process, discard. Get a little bit more volume on this sound. Not quite that much more, maybe 4. Good deal. Okay, so we're going to move this way in. We're going to process. We're going to discard. We'll leave the meat of our sound alone there, so we're not affecting that transient. And we'll do a fade out. Ooh, that is exactly what I want. We're getting just in this area here, we're getting a tiny little bit of the noise from the amp. And then it just kind of fades out naturally. Ooh, right. Yeah, that's the one I want right there. So we'll go discard. And I'll start getting right in on that start point. Process discard. We'll get a little bit more volume on this one. Do it. You can hear that amp noise coming through, you know, which is what we want, but we just want to use that to our advantage, not just leave it there for no reason. I'll leave the meat of that sound alone, and we'll do a fade out. That's what we want. Excellent. Okay. More versions of that stab, and yeah. Let's see here. Let's do a copy, and so make sure we get both of these. Good deal. I'll get that first one. Discard. Make sure that I didn't. It is pretty much the same as that one. So we'll pass on that and get this one instead. All right. Discard. We'll start getting this right on the downbeat. Get a little more volume on this one. Bring this in, discard. Leave the meat of our sound alone. Do a fade out. And check it. Yeah, very nice. Okay, what's next? A couple more stabs here. Let's see what we've got. Oh, definitely, and then, yeah, different. Okay, let's just get that one. So we'll do a discard. Get a little more volume on this one. And start zooming in on the start again. That looks good. Take it to about there, leave the meat of our sound alone, and do, whoops, I want to cancel rather, get that back to start, and do a discard first. There we go. Now we'll leave the meat of our sound alone and do a fade out. And we'll check our sound. Yeah, that's exactly what I want. Okay. Okay, we got these, so we'll go ahead and delete this one. Delete sample. I put this back at the beginning when you delete a sample. It's a little odd, but it is what it is. Snares, stabs, 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 vinyl noise. Okay, so the vinyl noise that I brought in, we don't need to edit that. It's just some really dark, rumbly vinyl noise for us to work with later. And then another one with a lot less lows on it. Of course, we'll be filtering and EQing these as we, use them anyhow. A really funky vinyl noise. Probably not going to be using all of these, but I brought them in just so we'd have them here. And it looks like we're down to the vocals, guys. So let's go ahead and get this out of the way and get this done. Let's go ahead and bring the gain up on this a little bit so we can see a little better. Get a little bit stronger level. Maybe do that again. Cool. And start zooming in on that downbeat. Right about Oh yeah. Discard. There's a little bit of crackle happening there. So let's maybe edit the sample so that the sample starts after the crackle. Perfect. Discard. And then we will, to make sure that we've got a nice zero crossing on the beginning, we're going to zoom way into the beginning and do a fade in on just the start. Like way in, right? And we'll do fade in. Whoops. Now we'll just get this in point back at the end again and bring the overall volume up on this sample a little bit. We're not going to need quite that much tail at the end, so I'll chop that off while we're here, and we'll move on to the next, Vocal Big Sky 2. Let's give it some more volume. All right, let's see what we've got here. There's only just a little bit of that distortion crackle this time, so I'm going to actually leave the beginning of this one in. Process, discard. We're not going to need all of that, you know, space at the end, so I'll get a little bit of that out of the way as well, and we'll move on to the next one. Here's the vocal that's been run through the virus and then recorded through the amp, so it's in mono. Let's see what this sounds like. A little harsh on that one. Let's hear these other ones. Yeah, definitely. And so let's, there's going to be some variation here. Do I want all of these? No. I'll take this one, discard, and we'll start zooming in there. Getting a surprisingly low amount of amp noise coming through on this recording, which is kind of cool. We're going to go ahead and trim that end off there, discard, and then just do kind of like a fade out. Whoops. On this last bit here, fade out. Do it. Good deal. Zoom out. All right. And moving on to the next sample, we have the vocal clean. Looks like it's probably just 4 versions of the same here. Ooh, nice. Yeah, so no delay at all. We'll definitely get that because we can maybe put our own stuff on it inside of the Force later. Get right in on the beginning. Okay. Let's do a fade in on that little beginning so there's no tiny little click. Fade in, do it. Get right in on there as well and discard that. There we have it, nice clean vocal. Here we have the vocal going through the amp again, and there's definitely 2 different versions. Let's see what we have here. That's dry. It's just kind of saturated, but also dry. I don't think we need like a louder version of it. I think we're okay on the vocal. So I'm gonna go ahead and delete this one. And then it puts us back at the beginning again for some reason. I still find that to be a little odd. Okay, here's another vocal. Let's chop the beginning of this off and raise the volume up. Good deal. And zoom in on that start point right tight there. Make sure we don't chop off too much of that reverb. We'll discard that, leave the sample alone, maybe bring it quite a bit further back this time, whoops, and do a process fade out again. Yeah, that's a real natural kind of sounding fade out. That's good. Oh my God, you guys, that's it. We did it. We got through the editing. That's all the samples. Everything is done. That's 3 days worth of recording. About 3 hours worth of recording and some editing all done there for us, guys. This is fantastic. And we'll definitely be doing episode 4 tomorrow, where I start actually sequencing this stuff out and actually making episode 5, rather. Episode 5, yeah. Took 4 episodes before we even get to some music. I appreciate your patience, guys. Keep in mind, this isn't the only way to work. This isn't the only way that I work. But this is a really good way to work. Thanks for watching, guys. Until tomorrow.